Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's professional development session on final grade computation in Canvas, or how can I get Canvas to compute my grades for me and not have to use my portable calculator. I'm Dave Giberson. I'm an old instructional design coordinator from Online Learning Pathways, and it's delightful to see you this morning. So, the Canvas Gradebook has considerable capability, a computational capability. And there are three different ways, at least, that you can set it up so that it will compute your final grades based upon your preferences and your promises to your students in your syllabus. And that's what we're going to go through today. For instance, let's just, this presentation is going to be predicated on a sample assessment scheme that may or may not look like what you use, but at least it'll give us a point of reference. In this sample course that we're going to be using, we've got 5 different types of assessments that are going to constitute our, that are going to be how our students prove their mastery of our material to us. We've got 10 fairly low stakes quizzes that are going to constitute roughly 10% of the grade. This is how we usually promise or describe these things to our students, right? In the syllabus, you know, you're going to have quizzes, major exams, and each one is going to count a certain percentage of the grade. We're going to see how to implement this in various ways in Canvas. Major exams, 3 of them, 30% of the grade. Homework assignments, 5, 20% of the grade. And graded discussions, 10% of the grade, the dreaded class participation grade, and a final exam that's going to count for 30% of the grade. So that's apparently a comprehensive final exam. A total of 60 points, a total of 200 points for the course, and of course the various assessments percentages add up to 100%. So that's what we're going to, that's the setting that we're going to be working with today. There are basically 3 grade computation options that the Canvas Gradebook presents to you or provides you with. And the default mode of operation, if you haven't made any changes or modifications to the computation scheme in your Canvas Gradebook, is this one, where each assessment is individually weighted, right? Our grade computation, of course, is based upon the fact that certain of these assessments are contribute more to the final grade than others. They're weighted more heavily than others. So your final exam is certainly going to contribute more to the final grade than a weekly quiz. But how you implement those weights is the difference between these 3 computation options. By default, each assessment will be individually weighted by the number of points that you specify for it when you create it in Canvas. An assessment that counts 20 points will have twice the weight of one that counts 10. So that takes care of things. And the total grade in the gradebook, in the Canvas Gradebook, can be shown in either points or a percentage. And there are different consequences to that decision. That's a fairly important decision in the Canvas Gradebook. A second option is to, again, have the assessments weighted individually just by their possible point value. with the total shown as a percentage, so that people don't have to remember, well, in a 200-point course, 180 points is required for an A if an A is 90% or above. They don't have to think about that. They see the percentage, they know right away. And once you describe to them your grading schema, which indicates where the cutoffs are for A, B, C, D, and F, then if the total in the grade book is shown as a percentage, then you got no problems. That does add one minor complication to the recording of the grades, which we'll talk about. And the third option is having your assessments weighted by what are called assignment groups, or in Blackboard, we used to call them grade categories. Like going back to our assessment scheme, each one of these rows here would be a grade category or an assignment group in Canvas, as the term is used. So we'd put the quizzes in one assignment group, the major exams in another, and so on. And then instead of weighting by individual item, we would weight by the group. And we can tell Canvas, for instance, that we want quizzes to count 10%, and it'll weight it by that group. It'll just average the quizzes together and do a weighted average computation for us. So let's take a look at each of those individual options in a sample Canvas course. Indeed, let's just take a quick look at that course first. There we are. You should be, you're seeing that now. If I go to the Gradebook in this course, which is where we're going to be working today, I see that I have a slew of quizzes here, 10 quizzes. Each quiz is worth 2 points. So for this, and then we have 5 homeworks. Each one of those is 8 points. I've chosen these possible points to make this add up to a nice even number of 200. So we can do percentage computations in our heads without difficulty. Major exams, 20 points each. Five graded discussions at 5 points each. And the final exam, 60 points, for a total of 200 points. So that's the landscape we're working with here. Okay, so let's take probably what's normally the default option when you just use the gradebook in Canvas without making any alterations to settings in the gradebook. Again, the assessments are individually weighted by possible points. So this means if you want one assessment to count more than the others, you just give it more points. It's conceptually very simple. It's the default setup. You don't have to make any changes. Very easy to grasp how Canvas is computing your final grade. What Canvas is doing in this case is simply adding up all the possible points for all of the assessments in the gradebook, getting a course total, which in this case would be 200 points. And then it's adding up the points awarded to each student for each assessment as you graded during the term. And it's dividing the big number into dividing the possible points into the award. Well, indeed, it's not even doing that. It's simply totting up the points earned by each student on each assessment into a total and putting that total in the total column in the grade book. Really, really, really simple. And then when you go to assign grades, you just sort the grade book on the total column and you see where the dividing lines are. Or you just go with the grading schema that you have set up. Let's say you've used the traditional 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to a 90 is a B, and so on. And anything below 60 is an F, 60 to 70 being a D, and so on. And you can just assign letter grades then just by looking at the number of points the student earned and seeing where they fall on that scale. Indeed, you can have Canvas do that for you. You don't have to do it yourself. If you're going to be hard and fast about it. Or if you're a little more flexible in assigning your final grades, as I say, you can just sort the grade book on the total column and go down. And let's say maybe somebody has an 89.5, and then there's a big gap down to the next student. Well, maybe you give that 89.5, or let's say somebody has 179 points out of 200, and then there's a big gap down to the next person. On that event, you may give the person with 179 points an A, and then go with B's below that, and so on. But sorting the grade book on the total column gives you a way to see that continuum of grades very easily and make it very easy to interpret. You can assign letter grades automatically via grading schemes. We'll see how to do that. All right. So let's see how that works. If we go to our grade book here, I've got a few test students in here and entered some grades. Pretty wide variety of performance here. And I can set this total column to points, left it as percentages accidentally, by going to the column header for the total and selecting display as points. Okay. And I have sorted the final grade, or sorted the grade book as a whole by the total column, grade high to low, so that I have the highest grades at the top and lowest grades at the bottom. This is the default way that the Canvas gradebook will work, and it's perfectly functional. You can set things up so that Canvas will assign letter grades for you automatically. Now, that does not mean that these letter grades will automatically be entered into PeopleSoft for you. Okay, they won't let us connect Canvas and PeopleSoft in that way. And they're probably wise in doing so, because there's way too many, it would assume that everybody set up their gradebook perfectly in Canvas, which is not always going to happen. So you're going to have to re-enter these or manually enter these letter grades into PeopleSoft anyway, filling in the form on the portal. But Canvas can make it very, very simple for you to do so. You can just have print out your Canvas gradebook, or have it up on your screen and bring it up and pop it down, bring it up and pop it down as you enter. Just transfer the data into PeopleSoft. And even with a large class, it's only going to take a few minutes. But if you want Canvas to do all the thinking for you about what letter grade goes with what point value, you can go to your settings in your course menu. And you can scroll down to grading scheme. By default, there will be no course grading scheme selected. You can enable course grading, obviously, by clicking on this button here. And you can click view. If you haven't selected a grading scheme, there'll be an option here to select one. Let's see what we have set up so far. This course is set up to use what we euphemistically call the standard scheme. This doesn't mean that this is recommended or is any kind of campus policy or anything like that. This is just this most commonly used grading schema in Canvas, which is the old standard of 90 to 100 an A, 80 to 90 a B, and so on. 10 percentage point differences. Notice this is all done in percentages. So if you're reporting if your final grade is being computed for you as as simply reported as a sum of points, you may have to do a little, you may have to have a calculator next to you or do a little computation in your head, or just write out the cutoff levels in a course with 200 points. It's fairly easy to do. 180 is 90%, right? So that's everything above that is an A, or at that level or above is an A, and so on. It's easy to do a nice even number like that in your head. It's not going to be as easy if you have some random number of points, like 250 or 600 or something like that. Then you'll have to do a little work with a personal calculator to figure out where your point cutoffs are. Yes.
I ask it real quick. I missed where you clicked enable grading scheme. I missed where you went. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. It is in the settings.
Oh, okay.
Settings page on in your course, and this affects only this course. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's about halfway, or a little over halfway down the page where it says grading scheme. You click here, and then we went to view the grading scheme, and that's how I got to this point.
Right. Thank you.
You bet. Don't ever hesitate to ask a question like that, because I know all you have to do is look up at the wrong time or look down at the wrong time and miss something. I'm always happy to recapitulate that, because repetition is the soul of learning. If you want people to remember something, you generally want to tell them more than once. So I'm happy to do that. If you don't like this grading scheme, you can select another one that's available on the system by clicking this button here, this link here. For this course, apparently I don't have another one. But if I want another one, I can manage grading schemes. And I can add a grading scheme of my own. And I get the default Canvas grading scheme, which involves pluses and minuses, which we don't use at the district. So I'm going to have to alter this. And that's easy to do. First thing I do is go through and I take out all the plus and minus grade options. I can do that with the X's over here on the right. So I don't need any minuses or pluses. ABC, no C minus, no D pluses, no D minuses. Who was terrified of D minuses? Peppermint Patty and Peanuts, I think. Okay, so now I've got it down to A, B, C, D, F. Now I get to decide where the cutoffs are. So maybe I'm a hard man And I don't want people to get an A for some wimpy 90%. I want them to get a 92 or above to get an A. Well, I can just type that in and press and click off of it. And that automatically adjusted the next cutoff. A B is less than 92. And let's say I want it anything from 82 to 92 to be a B. And and as I work my way down, everything is automatically adjusted as I make the changes. And I can save this. And now I have this as an option. So I can go back to my, let's see, can I just back up? Yeah, I can go back up, view grading schemes. And now I can select another scheme, and I have Dave's scheme. And I can put that in place if I wish. And then I just say, use this grading standard, and that becomes the means by which, or the yardstick by which Canvas will select or will identify my letter grades. I click done, go back to the gradebook. I see, if I roll out here to the right, I now see, as we did before, but if you don't have your grading scheme enabled, you won't see these letter grades out here. But now I do see letter grades out to the right. So Canvas is picking those heartlessly. If someone has just is 1 point short of an A, they'll get a B. But you always have the opportunity to override that, because remember, Canvas is not sending this to PeopleSoft. You get a look at it and say, that seems a little harsh, and you can report whatever you wish. But Canvas at least gives you a suggestion to start with in this case. So this is all really quite straightforward, and it's pretty much automatic. As you create an assessment in Canvas, an assignment, when you create a homework assignment, you assign you choose a certain number of possible points. When you create a test, you assign a certain number of points to each question in the test, and the total point value for the test is the sum of the point values of the questions. If you set up a graded discussion, which is the third type of assessment, you just choose the number of possible points. And then that automatically weights your grade computation. And the grade computation, again, is brutally simple. Canvas just adds up all the
Hold on
awarded points.
Hold on just a second.
And divides by the total of all the possible points, and multiplies by, and actually it doesn't even do that. I keep saying that. All it does is add up the awarded points, and then assigns letter grades heartlessly, and it does the computation for you. What it does, of course, is calculate a percentage grade by, as I said, by taking the total possible points and dividing it into the awarded points for the student, multiplying by 100, and then it compares that to your grading scheme, and it assigns the letter grade, and all the computations are done for you. So why would you ever do anything else? Why are there other options here? Well, there's one major drawback to doing it this way, and that involves quizzes and exams, which are likely to be a significant part of your grade. Though, let's address that issue for a moment. Quizzes, and especially major exams and final exams in Canvas and any online circumstance, are less secure even than they are in the classroom, and more vulnerable to cheating, though Lord knows that they're vulnerable enough even in the classroom. So assigning such a high percentage of the grade weighting to those can be problematic in an online course, where the students are taking the quizzes and the major exams and the final exam online on their own time, nobody around. Obviously, there's more room for diddling there. And generally, we recommend that a higher percentage of the weight for the final course grade would be assigned to things like homework assignments or graded discussions, which are more authentic assignments. That is, they tend to do a better job of demonstrating how well students have mastered the material, and they're also a lot harder to game. But we're dealing with reality here. So I'm showing this as a fairly typical grade weighting, but not necessarily something we would recommend. But in any case, we have what we have here. And the problem with, if there is such as it is, with this sort of approach to computing your final grades are the quizzes and the exams. In order to make this work out cleanly, in many cases, you want to have a certain point value. To have the quiz or the exam have a certain total point value. And you have to think about what that is and what that needs to be in advance. You have to design the quiz carefully and assign point values to the questions very carefully in order to come up with the total point value that you want. Like for the quizzes, in this case, I want 2 points per quiz so that they're weighted appropriately compared to other assessments in the course. But to do that, I have to be very careful in how I assign point values to questions. Indeed, if I don't have 2 questions on the test, or maybe an even number of questions, I have to assign fractional point values, which is not that difficult. And you can certainly do that in Canvas, but it's a pain. And you have to do an awful lot of thinking up front when you're assigning points to the individual assessments. You have to do a lot of soul searching. Well, how much, what's the relative weight this assessment should have in my grading scheme? Should it be 5 points? Should it be 10 points, 20 points? And so there's a lot of soul searching every time you create an assessment, especially when you're creating quizzes and tests, exams. There's a lot to think about. So that complicates things a bit. There's a lot of complication up front, but once that's done, the end result is very easy for you to understand, very easy for the students to understand. It's easy to explain to the students. So this is the default way that the Canvas Gradebook operates. And it's perfectly acceptable. But it just may not perfectly fit your desires in terms of the relative weight of the different types of assessments in the course, unless you're very, very careful when you're assigning possible points to each of those assessments by one means or another. So it adds a lot of time and effort to the development of the course. But once the course is developed, it's real simple, real easy to understand, and real easy to implement. Okay. Let's go to the next option here. Individually weighted individually weighted assessments, where you have the total shown as a percentage. This is basically the same situation as we saw in the first option, except that your total column is expressed as a percentage instead of a simple number of points. So there is a computation involved that Canvas will have to make, which we've already described, where it just adds up the possible points and divides that number into the awarded points for each student and multiplies by 100. The main thing you have to worry about in this case is that it's critical, in this case, where it was not in the first case, that unsubmitted assignments, things that students don't turn in, have to be recorded as zeros. They can't just be a little dash. They can't just be blank. They have to have zeros, because Canvas, when it computes a percentage like this, does not count unsubmitted assignments against students. And that's can lead to massive misunderstanding. A student who submits one assignment and gets 100 on it has 100% in the total column, even if they've never submitted another assignment. And that student, well, in that case, obviously that student can't be very confident about their grade, but someone who's just missed a few assignments may be unaware of their actual grade status in the course. And there are ways to handle this, including default grades and just manually entering zeros for assignments that are not submitted. So let's take a look at that and see what we're talking about in the actual grade book here. In order to convert from the first option to the one we're talking about now, all I have to do is go to the total column in the grade book, click on the little mouse over the column header, the word total. And when I do that, I see a menu button pop up. And I click on that, and I have the option to display the grade as a percentage. That doesn't change anything. It doesn't change any of the letter grades, because Canvas was using computing percentages to award letter grades anyway. So there are the percentages now. But let's see, this first student, this student here, the one up from the bottom, with the 75.71%, if I just go and take one of these out, the student's grade didn't change. This student didn't take exam 2, but they still got a C. They still got a 74.15%. So this is the danger with this. The advantages here are, of course, that it's easier for the students to interpret. It's also a lot easier for the students to see how they're doing as they move through the course. If you are expressing these total, if you're recording or displaying these total grades as points, as the student moves through the term, of course, they'll have access to their grades that have been posted so far. And what they'll see is a number of points. And in order for them to see how they're doing during the term, they've got to have the motivation and the math skills to look at the total possible points for the course, which you have to have provided to them, and look at the assignments they've submitted so far, or should have submitted so far. And they have to look at the possible points for each of those assignments, which they have access to. But that involves a lot of effort on the part of the student. They're probably, in many cases, not going to bother. And so it's a little hard for them to keep track of how they're doing during the term if you're reporting these total grades as points, simply as points. If there's a percentage grade there, well, they got a pretty good idea of how they're doing as they're moving along. They can see that they've gotten such and such a percentage of the possible points so far. But that's valid only if you make sure that by the time the assessment is over, that is, by the time the due date is passed and the students are no longer submitting that assessment, you need to go in and make sure that any assessments that have not been submitted have a 0, which you can just enter manually. And now if we look at that next to the last student's grade there, well, hey, that made a big difference. So if this is to be valid, you have to have zeros in the place of anything that was not submitted. One way to do that, of course, is simply to manually enter zeros for anything that's not been submitted after the students can no longer submit that assignment. And that, in this course, that wouldn't be any problem with what, 6 students, and it's no problem. If you've got 50 students in the class, that's going to be a bit more of a chore. So how can you deal with not having to do that? Well, one way to do that, at least, is to use what are called default grades. Each column in the gradebook, if you mouse over the column header, has a context menu associated with it, a little menu, a control menu, as evidenced by the 3 vertical dots. If you click on that, you've got an option to set a default grade. You've got to be very careful how and when you use this, but if you do, it can eliminate the need for you to go through and enter zeros manually for unsubmitted assignments. If I click submit or set default grade here, for sure I do not want to overwrite already entered grades. This would not be a good thing. But the default grade applies to it will not overwrite already entered grades if you do not check this box. So it would apply only to grades, to gradebook cells that don't have a grade in them. So it's critical that you not set this default grade until after all of the submissions have been made. But you can set the default grade to 0 after the due date, after students can no longer submit this, and then just set default grade. And that, in this case, there were no unsubmitted assignments, so it's not updating anything. But let's say this, just delete that one. Now, if I go and I set the default grade on this one to 0, it updated that dash to a 0. So this is how you can avoid having to go through and manually enter zeros for unsubmitted assignments. But just remember, don't do this until after you have entered all, and after everyone has taken the exam or the quiz or the graded discussion or whatever. After they can no longer submit, then you can use this to automatically enter zeros. Yes, Gabby.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Is there a feature that we can do that to the entire grade book?
There is. There is.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's in under the little geared wheel. Let me get that out of the way. Sorry, that's my little annotation toolbar. I guess I could use that here, couldn't I? Yeah, it's right. Get this out of the way. It's right here.
Okay.
Little geared wheel. Sorry, new toy. You can use that. This is a free Chrome extension that you can use to draw on your screens when you're talking about them in class. But that was Wednesday's presentation, as a matter of fact. But I just click on that option and I can set oh, wait a minute. That's not correct. There used to be a default grade option there. Well, looks like I have to take that back. That used to be possible.
No problem.
That's something I'm going to have to check on.
And I'm sorry, I walked in a little late, but I'm looking at my grade book and it's slightly different than yours. I don't have all the assignment groups showing like that. Do you mind just showing me how I can get the same view that you do? Is it in the view?
Oh, you don't have all the grade columns showing.
No, I have all the grade columns,
Okay.
but I don't have organized the way you do. You know, this where you have all modules and to the left of it, you have all assignment groups. I don't see that in my grade book.
Okay, the assignment, you will see assignment group. Oops, I'm on the wrong screen. You will see assignment group columns
Yes.
like these, only if you have created assignment groups.
Oh, I do. It's just that it's
Okay.
yeah, never mind. It's a minor little issue. Thank you.
Well, no, that's good. And you certainly should see columns for those assignment groups.
I do. What I don't see is the part on the top that where it says assignment names and right above it. Yes,
Oh.
right above it. I don't see those two dialogue boxes.
Oh, you don't
that
see the
hide
search
all assignment
students
groups.
and search assignment boxes?
Oh, yeah, right. Exactly. This I don't have. This and the one next to it.
Or these?
Yes, these two I don't see. Oh, maybe that's what I need. There we
That's
go.
what it is. Yeah, I was just making sure before I answered that I was going to answer it.
Perfect.
That's
Thank you.
controlled by your view option here.
Okay,
And you
thank
select that. And if you set filters on, you will then see those boxes. Used to be you'd see them regardless, but now they made it
Perfect.
possible for you to get rid of those. So now you can filter your grade book by assignment groups and by modules,
Thank you.
so that you can
Got it.
control which columns are displayed at any given time to make it a little easier to work with. And I'm not sure how you would turn these off, though. I thought those were mandatory. So if you're not seeing the search boxes, I'm not sure where that is. I'd have to look into that. Good question. Okay, well, that's what we're here for, is to learn about the grade book as much as anything else. So please feel free to ask questions like that as we go along, or indeed to ask any questions as we go along. We've got plenty of time on this one today. We'll probably finish early anyway, because we're already down to option 3, which is a little bit more complicated than the first 2, but we're not going to run out of time if you ask questions. So please feel free to do so. Okay, so any questions about the first 2 options then? Individually weighted assessments and all the soul searching you have to go through up front to create those, with totals shown either as points or as percentages. Any other questions or concerns about those? If you think of it, just bring it up in a minute. Okay, now for the third option. Assessments weighted by assignment groups. This is, in setting it up, it's a bit more complex conceptually, rather than just adding up points and reporting the total number of points, or adding up points and getting a percentage of the possible points. It's a little bit harder to grasp. But functionally, it's simpler. When you're creating your assessments, you don't have to worry as much about the actual number of points that the assessment is worth. Indeed, you can just make all the assessments worth 100 points and let Canvas do all the weighting computations for you, because you can create assignment groups or categories of grades, and you can weight the categories rather than the individual assessments. So you only have to make a very limited number of decisions, like a decision for the weight on each assignment group or category of grades, probably 4 or 5 or 6 decisions instead of dozens, perhaps. Having created assignment groups, you have to assort them among assignment groups. And within the assignment groups, the assessments are weighted equally. So, and also, if you a corollary or a value added property of assignment groups is that they allow you to drop lowest grades. So if you have a bunch of quizzes and you don't want to have to continually deal with people making up quizzes who have legitimate reasons to have missed them, you can just say, okay, there's 10 quizzes. I'm going to drop the lowest one. So if you miss a quiz, that's automatically your lowest grade. There's no makeup. And if you miss 2, then you're just going to lose those points. You don't want to miss 2. Whoop. So these are some of the advantages of using assignment groups and of weighting your grade computations by assignment group. Well, let's see how this works. I have already created assignment groups here, but I'll show you how I did that. You create and manage assignment groups, assignment groups. And this, by going to the assignments link in your course menu. This is a link you probably are not sharing with your students. You can, but certainly the students will not be able to do what I'm going to show you in the assignments group link or in the assignments link in the course menu if you choose to share it with your students. Okay, if I click there, I see my assessments in the course. Now this gets to I'm going to do my usual rant about assignments versus assessments in Canvas. Canvas uses the word assignment very loosely in its lexicon. In some cases, Canvas uses the word assignment to indicate any graded item in the course, or a graded item being an assessment, okay? So the word assignment can mean any assessment, which means it could be a quiz, a homework assignment, or a graded discussion, which are the 3 types of assessments that Canvas has available to you. In other cases, Canvas uses the word assignment to refer specifically to one of those assessment types, the homework assignment. So this tends to generate confusion when you're talking about things like we're talking about right now. The assignments tool, or the assignments link in the course menu in Canvas, is an automatically created, or gives you access to an automatically created list of all of the graded items or all of the assessments in the course. So under the assignments tool, you see quizzes listed, you see homework assignments listed, you see graded discussions listed. And they all show up in here automatically when they're created. So whenever you create anything that's going to have a grade in Canvas, it shows up automatically in the assignments tool. You don't have to put it in there. But initially, when you get your Canvas shell, there's only one list, and everything goes into it. The quizzes go into it, the homework assignments go into it, the graded discussions go into it, and they go into it in the order in which you create them when you're developing the course. So by default, in this course, you don't have a nicely organized set of assessments here. And you'll just have a jumbled list of all of your assessments, and all of it will be listed under a heading labeled assignments, even though they're not all homework assignments. So things get really confusing really fast. And this is one of the least well-designed areas or objects in Canvas because of this fuzzy technology or fuzzy terminology they use. But you can bring order to it out of chaos. And you can bring order to your list of assignments by creating assignment groups, which is done using this button right here, the plus group button. It's very simple to do this. You just click add group and you give the group a name. And then you save it. So like, I'm gonna just call this new assignment group and save it. It automatically goes to the bottom of the page. And here's a new empty assignment group. And you can have as many assignment groups as you like. You can organize this as finely as you like, or with as little granularity as you like. And once you create your assignment groups, to organize your assignments into them, all you have to do is click and drag a particular assessment into that assignment group. And then I'm using assignment and assessment sometimes as if they meant the same thing, and then sometimes as if they didn't. But to assort your assessments among assignment groups, all you have to do is drag them into it, like so. So that's how I set up this structure to start with. I made 5 assignment groups to match my 5 categories of assessments that I have in my grading scheme. Let's go back to that, remind ourselves what that was. I'll remind myself what that was. That's not a bad idea. I can go back to that second slide, and I can go slideshow from beginning. And actually, I need to get rid of that. And do.
You always have to drag the things in. It doesn't automatically.
You do have to click and drag them in. You're absolutely right. From current slide. There we go. Okay, I had 5 categories of assessments in this course with weights. I'm going to need this slide up here to make sure I've done this properly. And so I needed 5 assignment groups. So I just create and quizzes, major exams, homework assignments, graded discussions, final exam. So I just made those assignment groups. Here's my quizzes. I made them using the add group button here. Here's my quizzes, my homework, my major exams. Let me make that congruent. I can edit any of the assignment groups by just clicking on the context menu out to the right of the name of the group and clicking edit, and that allows me to edit the name. That changed the column heading in the gradebook, but it didn't affect anything else. Discussions and final exam. New assignment group doesn't fit into that. I don't want to leave that there, so I'm going to put my discussion back up here in the discussion group. Discussion 1 back in the discussion group. And I'm just going to get rid of this one, because if I have an empty assignment group in the in my assignments list here, if I go back to the gradebook real quick, actually, I'm not sure it is going to show that, come to think of it, because I don't have anything in it. Yeah, it will not create a column for an assignment group that is.
I see the column to the right.
To the right,
Oh, I'm sorry.
after the total.
Oh, there it is. It did put it in there, didn't it? You did. I'm wrong. Okay. So this is going to cause confusion. I don't want that in there. I can't delete it from here. But I can go back to my assignments link, and I can delete it here. And now if I go back to the gradebook, it won't be there anymore.
So when you create assignment groups, let's just say I have 4,
Right.
and I put all my Zoom assignments, I have a particular thing called Zoom assignment.
Right.
Will they all be in order in the gradebook then automatically if I order them
No.
under assignment?
No, they will be grouped together, and they will automatically show in the gradebook in the order that they list, that they're listed in the assignments.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes. Because you see here, I've got quizzes 1 to 10 listed
Yeah.
in ascending order, but I've got the homeworks in descending order. And if we go to look at the grade book, that's how they're listed here. Quizzes from 1 to 10, but homework assignments from 5 to 1. So the default order in the grade book is the order in which the assignments are arranged in your assignments tool.
Why did you do 5 to 1?
Just to show the difference.
Oh,
Answer the question that you just answered, or
okay.
that you just asked.
Yeah.
But you can override that in the gradebook by clicking and dragging. If you just point at the column header and click the mouse button and move it,
Mhm.
you can move this. And that does not change the order in the assignments list.
Yeah, I have done that before. Uh-huh.
So you can override this, but the default is to show things in the order that they're listed in the assignments list.
Well, this will be a lot easier when I start the summer from the beginning, because no point now.
Right, you make a lot of decisions
Mhm.
which is we try to time this session near the end of the semester each semester.
Uh-huh.
so that if you have questions about what your grade book is doing right now, you can resolve those. But it also gives you a chance to, you're pretty soon you're going to be setting up your shell for next semester, and it gives you a chance to change your decisions at this point in time, if you like. So we try to make this one timely.
May I ask question, Dave?
You certainly may.
Hi, how have you been? My question is, if I want to give a practice test to students and get extra point from that, how can I bring into calculation that extra point? In which group?
If you want to give extra credit.
Correct.
Good question. How do you handle extra credit? Handling extra credit is actually fairly complicated if you are weighting everything by assignment groups. You almost have to kind of just do it manually by manually adding points to the total or something like that. However, if you are individually weighting assignments, it becomes quite simple to make an assessment, an extra credit assessment. And the only thing you have to do to make that happen is go to your assessment. You can go to your assignments list. And if I want to make, say, discussion 5, an extra credit discussion. So, and of course, let's think about what that means. That means that if a student chooses to participate in discussion 5, they will be able to increase their grade. But if a student doesn't choose to participate in discussion 5, they should not be penalized. They should just get the grade they would get if they, that should not affect their grade. It may affect their relative standing in the course, but it won't affect their actual grade. So how can I make discussion 5 an extra credit discussion? Well, I just edit the discussion. And this is graded, so I have possible points. To make this extra credit, I just give it 0 possible points. So think about what that does. So this, if I make that 0 points possible, this discussion would not increase. Having this discussion in the course does not increase the total possible points. This is going to drop the possible points in the course to 195 instead of 200 that I have right now. And that's the number, but that's the number in the denominator of the fractions used to calculate the percentage grade, and thus the percentage total grade and the letter grade in the course. So the possible points is going to be 195. If a student chooses not to do this, they're still going to be evaluated on 195 possible points. A student who does choose to engage in this discussion will get credit, will get points for doing that. And those points will be added up in the awarded, will increment or increase the awarded points for that student. So that student, when you divide that number by 195, that student will get a higher percentage than they would have if they didn't participate in the discussion. But the student who doesn't participate is not going to be penalized. They're still going to be evaluated on the basis of 195 possible points, because I have taken this discussion out of the possible points total. So that's all there is. If you're weighting assignments individually by possible points, then you just make an extra credit assignment 0.
Dave,
Possible. Yes.
you said it only works for the individual, not for
The situation gets a lot more complex. The computation gets a lot more complex if you are weighting by assignment group. So there you pretty much just have to sort of manually massage the grade. You can't just make an assignment 0 possible points and have it actually counted as extra credit if you're weighting by assignment group. So it's better just to manually add a few points to the student's total somewhere.
Yeah, Dave, you,
Yes, by God. Yes.
yeah, you explained very clearly. I'm thinking if there is a way, even though we are weighted average, let's say I set it up my grade by weighted average. Is there any way this extra point to go to the overall grade to contribute?
Well, not if you're weighting. There's no clean way to do it if you're weighting by assignment group. And the only way really to award extra credit in the event that you are weighting by individual assessment is to set one or more assessments to a 0 possible point value. But it only takes a moment, and it works like a charm every time. So my advice, if you're going to do a lot of extra credit work, is to weight by is to use one of the options where you weight by individual assessment, and that just adds to the amount of time you have to spend soul searching about how many possible points to assign to each assessment. But once you've worked through that, you only have to do that once the first time you design the course, and then it'll just run fine from there on. So,
Could I ask a question?
of course.
Are you finished with what you were saying?
Yeah, I've pretty much said everything I can say about that.
Okay, so if we decide to change the way we compute the scores, I mean the individual groups,
Right.
isn't that if we do that in the middle or toward the end of the semester, that confuses the student.
That not only would that confuse the students, but that would be a violation of the implied contract represented by the course syllabus.
Okay.
Okay, so no, this is a decision most of these decisions have to be made at the beginning of the term, and they have to be communicated to the students in the syllabus. Right. As such, you can't really change the rules in midstream. Not that people haven't done that and gotten away with it, but it's not really fair to the students. And if a student called you on it, you could be in trouble.
Okay.
Okay, just speaking plainly there, because as we've all been told again and again and again, the syllabus is a legally binding contract, both on the student and upon us. And if we say that your exams are going to count a certain percent for a certain percentage of the grade, and we change that later, then the student has legitimate room to complain. And somebody will. So it's a very good question. So the presenting this right at the end, again, is partly done to just help you understand what Canvas is doing in computing your final grade. So that's clear in your mind that it's doing what you think it is. And, but it also gives you a chance to make a change for next semester at the appropriate time. So that's why we do this session now, rather than at the beginning of the term, because once you've started the term, you've already put your syllabus out there and so on. It's too late to change it.
I have one more question, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Is there maybe I'm still maybe using manual to change point is possible for each question in Canvas. I remember that when you taught that in Blackboard, if you just change for each question less instead of 1 point, let's say I say 0.5, it automatically changes for the whole question. Now in Canvas, I'm doing just each question I have to change whatever possible point I decide. So Is Canvas updated or still?
I am sorry, I am having trouble. I'm having trouble hearing you. And this sounds like a very complex question, and I'm not tracking it. So but I really want to address this for you. Can you type that out for me in an email? And I will evaluate, I will do my best with it, and I will send you back your own little tutorial on how to deal with that or
Okay.
with any
Okay.
input that I can provide. That may be a little more than I can deal with here in the live session right now, but I really want to make sure that I get that dealt with for you. Let me put just to make, and of course this offer extends to everyone. If you ever have a question that you want me to help with, just email me, and I'm putting my email in the chat.
Okay.
There's my district email, which they still allow me to keep, amazingly enough. So please feel free to email me a question anytime, and I'll either type out the answer or I'll make you your own little video tutorial for that. Yes, Gabby.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's a way for us to see the total column, not as a percent, but as points, because I'm afraid that some of my extra credit are counting not as extra credit. So I can't see.
Unfortunate, and you already have assignment groups set up, correct?
Yes.
And have weighted those assignment groups.
I don't know if I wanted to have weighted, but I did.
Sure, that was a good idea at the time. I hear you.
But I created a group just for extra credit. Is that bad?
Well, you address the problem perfectly. You don't know what it's doing because it's fake. Because once you weight assignment groups, which I have not done here yet, but once you weight assignment groups, this display as points option disappears.
And can I unweight the assignment group?
You can unweight the assignment groups and then reapply the weights later. If you.
Is it possible to show me that, or you want me
Absolutely.
to? Absolutely.
I'm going to show you how to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good question. Yeah, you can always flip back and forth here, and you're not changing any of the grades.
Right.
Anything you're doing in the assignments tool. So you can flip these things back and forth. You may confuse some students who just happen to look at their grades at the moment you're changing things.
Right.
But, you know, if you do it like late at night or something like that, it's unlikely someone's going to catch you doing it. So if we go back to settings again, I'm sorry, if we go back to assignments. Needed an extra cup of coffee this morning. All right, now, so I have my assignment groups created, but I haven't weighted them yet. If I want to have Canvas compute my grade based upon assignment group weights rather than individual assessment weights, I have to give each of these assignment groups a weight of its own out of 100%. I do that by going to the this double secret menu in the upper right-hand corner of the assignment page in your course, an unlabeled menu. And if you click on that, you have an assignment groups weight option.
Okay.
So this is where you go in that case. And you have an option here to either weight the final grade based on assignment groups or not. The default is to not.
Mine is weighted right now. But
Right.
it was not
But you
intended.
can go in and you can uncheck that and take that out. And then you can look at the number of points.
Ah, perfect.
Okay. And then reset it back. Because if you have ever set assignment group weights, Canvas will remember what you did. And that's what you're going to see here.
And how does this unweighing affect the group that I created for extra credit assignments?
Well, it will not. There just will be no weights to apply to any of the assignment groups. So you will see that you'll see the assessments, the impact of those assessments in the point value, in the total point value, without regard to any assignment group settings.
Yeah, but if I wanted to make sure that the extra credit is actually counting as extra credit, how
Then
do I?
you're going to have to pick a student and compute their grade manually and see if it agrees with what Canvas has.
Yeah, I have like a test student always, so I can do
Yeah,
that.
you could use, indeed, you could, and the safe thing to do is to just use your test student
Mhm.
and to
But now my total
just
points.
manually assign grades to your test student in the grade book and then see what happens when you undo the assignment group weights.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Good idea. Indeed, I probably should have started by prefacing my remarks about the Canvas gradebook's capability to compute grades by saying, don't ever trust anything that you haven't checked. And the only way to check reliably is to pick a student, your test student or a real student, and manually compute their grades with a hand calculator and a piece of paper. You only have to do that for one student. You can assume that if it's doing the right thing for one student, it'll do for others, particularly if you can pick a student, perhaps one student who has availed themselves of extra credit and another who hasn't. And then you can see what the result should be according to your intent by doing the computation manually. And then you can compare that to what you see in the grade book with the assignment group weights turned on and with them turned off. And
I don't believe I see the total anymore when I upgraded.
If you turn the assignment group weights off, you will see the option to express the total as points.
And that would be in settings?
That would be in the grade book. Let me get back to the grade book. I haven't enabled assignment group weights yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go to the grade book and go to the total column, which in Canvas is going to be in one of two places. Well, actually, you can move it around manually.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's either going to be at the end or at the beginning. You can move it to the front.
Oh, I see.
When you're computing grades, if you like.
Mhm.
And that doesn't affect grades or anything like that. It just and it doesn't affect what the students see either. That's another item you need to know about the grade book. The order in which you have your grade book columns arranged does not necessarily determine the order in which the students see the grades in their grades tool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they can control that themselves. They have about 4 different options. And so you can't be sure that they're seeing the grades in the same order that you are. But that's another issue. So if I have not enabled my assignment group weights, I have the option to display my total as points.
Mm-hmm.
But once I set, or percentages, once I set the assignment group weights, this option is going to disappear.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so
One of those little nasty gotchas in the grade book.
much. Thank you.
Good questions. All right, so we'll go assignments. Now, to set my assignment group weights is just the work of a moment. I go to this master menu up here in the upper right. I select assignment group weights. I check the box that says I want to weight my final grade based on assignment groups. And suddenly I see all my assignment groups. And if this is the first time I've done it, there won't be any numbers in these boxes here. So you just have to type them in.
Mhm.
And you want to make sure that it adds up to 70% or to 100%. Obviously something wrong here. That one I didn't. You want to make sure the total down here is 100%, or things are going to get really fuzzy really fast. So these are the numbers that I presented to my students in the syllabus. If I go back to my original, my second slide here, I had 10% for quizzes, 30% for major exams, 20% for homework assignments, 10 for graded discussions, and 30% for the final exam. And that's what I've got set here. Okay, so this needs to match what you put in your syllabus.
Mhm.
And this ensures that, in fact, what you put in your syllabus is what you're doing, or what the Canvas gradebook is doing. If you are weighting your assessments individually by point value, you have to do a lot of scratch paper and manual computation as you're assigning possible point values to your assessments as you develop the course, in order to ensure that if you report, or if you tell students in the syllabus that their major exams are going to count 30% of the grade, and you have everything weighted manually, you have to be really careful about the point values that each exam is worth in order to ensure that that is happening correctly. And if you happen to have a student who's a math major and who's very concerned about their grades, if they go through and run that computation and they don't get 30%, they don't see the 30% for major exams computing out, you may have a complaint on your hands. So it's very time consuming and energy inefficient to make your individually weighted assessments line up with something like this PowerPoint slide. If you put something like the PowerPoint slide in your syllabus, which most of us do, there's something like, there's a paragraph in the syllabus that has something like this in it. And making this reality in Canvas, if you're weighting your assessments individually, involves a lot of careful computation and careful choosing of possible points, which is one of the reasons that I like doing it this way, because it's so simple. Canvas takes care of all the arithmetic for you if you do it this way. It's quite common to just have, or one common option is to just weight, or just provide a possible points for every assessment at 100 points. That makes it easy to grade and easy to figure out how well the student did on a particular assessment, or easy for the student to figure it out. And then all of the weighting is done at this level instead of at the individual assignment level, which makes it a lot faster to compute grades, or a lot easier to develop the course in the first place, rather. But anyway, once you have set your weights, you just save them. And now you will see those weights in the assignment groups list. You'll see the weight for each group listed next to the group. So how does this work then? What is Canvas, when you weight by assignment groups, what is Canvas actually doing in the arithmetic to compute your final grade? Well, what it does is it takes the grade, the point grade on each assessment. It computes internally without reporting it to you. It computes a percentage grade. Then it averages all the percentages evenly for all the assessments within an assignment group together. It takes that average and it uses that in a weighted average formula that it creates, again, silently, you don't see it. But basically, in this case, since this is 10% of your total grade, and if you figure the total grade is 100 points, 100%, it will multiply the 10 points out of 100 that the quizzes represent by that percentage, or by the decimal fraction equivalent to that percentage, and get a term in a weighted average formula of that's something less than 10, probably, if the student wasn't perfect. And it will do that for each of the assignment groups, and it will come up with a number and then reconvert that to a percentage and display it as a percentage. So in effect, all the assessments are treated equally. So it just removes from your cognitive load the necessity to soul search so much when you're assigning possible points to assignments and quizzes and graded discussions during the development of the course. And it ensures that if you have provided something like this table to the students in your syllabus, that this is in fact the way these grades are being weighted relative to one another. So you don't have to worry about students complaining about that. Well, they'll complain about it anyway, but their complaints will not be valid. So,
Dave?
yes.
So right now, like for the what do you call the assignment group grading,
Mm-hmm.
the students have not taken the final exam yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the total that they came up with seems kind of, I looked at my class average.
Mm-hmm.
If I put the zeros in there, just to kind of shock the students, if you don't take the exam, that's what's where it's gonna be. Because I'm kind of afraid the students might think of it as kind of the grades are really elevated. How's that students see that one? Do you see like what the students see right now?
Mm-hmm. Is the whatever's listed in your
so far, right? So like what I'm saying is the final exam is 20% of the total grade. So
right.
Like I'm kind of afraid that students might say, oh, I'm doing so well in class right now. Like students who are getting in C grade right now, it looks like B.
Well, let's see what happens to these if the students haven't taken the final exam yet.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, here, let's see, we're going from 94.4 to 64.3% there. Let's just take these out. They were just made up grades anyway, so I can make them up again. All right, everything is automatically computed. Now, what the students are seeing, but that didn't drop these percentage grades to way down, because when you're reporting grade, when you're displaying total grades as percentages, Canvas does not count anything that the student hasn't attempted
Right.
against them. So this test 4 student, the one at the top here, going into the final exam has a 92. They've got an A. So they know how well they're doing on what they've submitted so far, which is an advantage in displaying the total grades as percentages. They know how they're doing to this point, but they should also know, of course, that the final exam is still outstanding and it's 30% of the grade. You told them that in the syllabus. So they've got to know that, okay, I'm doing pretty well right now, but I can really seriously screw it up if I don't study for the final.
It sounds like the caller or the other person, instructor, is saying that students have the option of not showing up, but that would be a 0 credit for them.
Right.
And then they think they're still getting an A, but you'd have to put in 0 points. But they should, like you said, they should know that they have to show up for the exam.
Right. You want to make that very clear to them that if they don't, just because it says 92 right now doesn't mean that that's what you're going to get if you don't show up and take the final. Because in that event, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put a 0 in here. Uh-oh, I hope I haven't set a default grade here. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry.
You
That's,
want to go to the left. Right?
yeah, I went, yeah, there we go. I'm in the wrong, you're absolutely right. I'm in the wrong place. If I put a 0 in there, well, right now that student has a 92. If I put a 0 in there, not so much.
That's the point right there.
Yeah, that's the point you want to make very clearly to them. If you don't show them, take the final. Or I know, I have known instructors to say, you have an option. If you want to stop while you're ahead and not take the final, you can take what you got now. I've never been comfortable with that idea. Yeah, I see you, Espen. I see you shaking your head. Yeah, I can't, but I have seen people do that. If the final exam is not comprehensive, and if the assignments up to that point have been comprehensive and authentic, and you're comfortable without, but you want to give the student an option to do better, to improve their grade by taking a final exam, I can see the logic in it. I don't happen to subscribe to it, but I can see the logic that somebody might feel that way. And Canvas then would just keep that grade as it was. Because again, the critical thing here that I'm trying to impart is that if there's not a grade there, if there's just a dash in the cell for that grade, Canvas, if you're reporting grades as percentages, either, no matter how you're weighting them, whether you're weighting them by assignment group or by individual assessment, if you're reporting by percentage, Canvas and the grade cell is simply blank, that won't be counted against the students. Canvas disregards that and doesn't count it against them. So you got to be sure that if you're displaying total grades by percentage, that you have zeros in place for any unsubmitted assignments, zeros in the grade book for those. And we talked about the 2 ways you can do that, either to set a default grade or just manually enter zeros.
So Dave, just one question, like right now, final exam is a blank right now, right?
Right.
So when the students see it, for example, final exam is 20% and the rest of them. So then if I don't have a final exam, it's blank, like does it increase the other items like homework and other exam grades higher to come up with it? How did they come up with the total percentage?
Yeah, it actually increases the impact of the others on the grade. Yeah, that would be in effect the result. Yes.
All right, thank you, Dave.
It just shows them how well they're doing on things they have not, on things that they have submitted. But the danger there is if there's not a zero somewhere, they can think they're doing much better than they are. And we have had that happen any number of times. We have had students file grade appeals based on that because they got to the end of the term and, you know, the percentage in the Canvas grade column said 92%. And they end up getting a B because they forgot that they didn't submit to assessments. And Canvas didn't warn them of that. And they've filed grade appeals. I honestly don't know what the results of those appeals were, but I remember there was a lingering a stench that lingered for some time and a request to make it more clear to the faculty that if there's not a zero in there, it's not being counted against them. In Blackboard, for those of you who've been here for a while, our previous learning management system, you had a switch you could turn to have Canvas or to have the gradebook operate as Canvas does, or to have it, in other words, you could have your total expressed as a running total or not in Blackboard. In Canvas, that's not an option. The total is expressed as a so-called the percentage is expressed as a running total. So it's how the students are doing on the things that they've actually turned in, not, or the things they actually have a grade for, not necessarily reality. Yes, Espen, you had your hand up there.
Thanks. Two things to that. I will go in oftentimes and highlight the zeros. It gives you the option to mark it as missing, and then it shows red, physically red.
Right.
So that's helpful when a student brings up a challenge or says something. But the question I have is, I spent last week putting in all my final grades for papers, and I wrote comments in all of them. And then students are telling me they didn't get the comments, they just got the grade. I went to look and none of my comments saved. So now I have to go back in and repost my comments to the papers. Is there something that I'm missing because the grade stayed, right? The individual grade stayed.
When you're adding comments in the speed grader.
Exactly. But the comments, I'd say 3 out of 25 students got the comments. So now I'm manually going back in and trying to recreate all of my thoughts and comments.
There's only one way I can think of that might happen. And I want to deal with that. But let me see. I think
we can talk about it later. I just wanted to pop.
Oh, no, that's good. I'll deal with it right now. I just want to make sure we don't have any more questions about how the gradebook is operating or how grade weighting is operating and so on before I address Espen's question.
I have a quick question about just how to reorder the view in the gradebook again, because I moved my columns back and forth.
Right.
You said that we can set up by what we put in the assignment, but it's not resetting for me.
No, it doesn't reset automatically. Once you move something, that overrides any default. So if you want to reorder them, once you've reordered them manually, if you want them back the way they were, you just have to do it.
Okay.
Click and drag.
Thank you.
It's only initially that default applies for you. Good question. Okay.
Marnie has her hand up as well.
Now, Marnie.
Thank you. Espen, are you talking about in the comments section?
Yes.
Or are you talking about, are you submitting it into Turnitin or whatever we use?
No, it's actually entering a physical grade. Let's say they turned in a paper and I've read it, and then I'm giving them their grade. At the same time I enter their grade, I put a comment in that little box on the right.
Okay.
But it saves the letter grade and not the comments.
That used to happen to me too. And then somehow I got an update, and I'm not sure if it was my computer. And so if I don't press submit for the comment, it will ask me, do I want to submit?
Thank you. I might have just hit enter instead of submit something. I'll look at that. Thank you.
Well, that's what I was going to show you. Yeah. But I tell you, there's one other thing I do want to mention vis-a-vis assignment groups, and then we're going to go look at the speed grader in another course and see both how you can check and know whether your assignments or whether your comments are being saved, and also how you can inform the students how to see those comments. Unfortunately, in the student grade tool, it's very easy for the students to miss the comments. Okay, they may not get everything if they don't utilize that grades tool properly. And we do have a tutorial for them that shows them how to do that. But let me just deal with one more thing in the assignment groups. An ancillary benefit of assignment groups, quite apart from weighting options and things like that, is the ability to drop the lowest grade in a sequence of grades that are in the same assignment group. And that's something we often want to do. To do that, you have to edit the assignment group. For instance, if I wanted to drop the lowest quiz grade and not have that affect the student's grade, I can go to the context menu for the assignment group in the title bar for the assignment group and click on this little menu button here, and I can edit. And I get this box. I can change the name of the group. I can change the weighting percentage from here, but I can also set it to drop the lowest grade simply by changing this number here. Number of scores to ignore for each student can be set. You can ignore both lowest scores and highest scores. Okay, grading theory says that if you drop the lowest grade, you should probably drop the highest grade too, and remove the outliers, and you're going to get a more realistic view of how well the student did. If you decide to try that, let me know, will you? Assuming your students haven't already strung you up from the flagpole. I've never had the guts to try that with an actual group of students. The whining would be absolutely unbearable. But it's easy to drop the lowest grade just by setting this number, using these up and down arrows here, setting the number to 1, or you can drop the 2 lowest or whatever.
And that is just the lowest score within that group.
Within that assignment group. So the lowest quiz in this case. And you can do that in other assignment groups as well. And Canvas will do the massaging of the grade computation to, and it won't count it against the student if they, it'll automatically drop the lowest grade from consideration in the final computation. You can also, if there's a particular quiz or a particular assessment within this group that you want everyone to have to take, and everyone has to have that counted, whether they actually took it or not, you can add a particular assessment to that list. Never known anyone to actually want to do that, but
so if you say, I don't want to drop the middle assignment for
right,
you can say never drop assignment number 7.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. Even if
it gives you another option. Somebody wanted that. Some group of people wanted that really bad at some point, because that wasn't an original capability in Canvas, and Canvas Instructure added that. And I'm not quite sure why. I'm sure it's an interesting story. But then once you have set this, you just save your changes, and you'll see a little rule indicator here that if you click on it will tell you, or if you point at it, I should say, will tell you what that rule is doing. It's dropping the lowest score. I'd love to hear from somebody someday who dropped with the highest score as well. See how that went over. Braver person than I. Okay, so that's everything I had to share with you. And you've had some great questions, most of which I hope we eventually got answered. If not to your satisfaction, at least to the reality of the situation. But now I want to deal with Espen's question in more detail. Why might a comment that you've entered in the speed grader not show up to students? And the answer should be that really shouldn't, Canvas really shouldn't let that happen. But there is a...
I figured it out based on what Marnie said. I was entering the grade, and then I was going to type in the comment, and then I go to the next grade, but I didn't hit the word submit.
You didn't hit the submit button. That's
I would save the grade number.
Let's show everybody that,
Yeah.
just in case.
Yeah, I just fiddled with it while you're all talking.
Oh, okay, and they did show up. And there is a way you can tell.
Well, they didn't. I had to redo it. What I'm saying is I did a test one, and I noticed when I didn't hit submit, it didn't record.
That's right. That's exactly the answer. Let me find a...
But the unfortunate thing is that all the time I spent on writing those comments are lost in the...
Yes, I do understand exactly. That's not just regrettable, it's infuriating. Because you won't be able to do it exactly the same way.
Correct.
Let me find something. Let me find a course here where I've got an assessment that hasn't been graded, or that hasn't, at least doesn't have comments. Let's see.
While you're doing that, maybe you or someone else can answer this question for me. When I get Word documents, I used to get the time, like when I have a student upload a document, it used to say the time they uploaded it. Now all I can see is if it was done the day of, or if it was 1.27 days late. It doesn't actually give the date and time they were uploaded any longer.
Oh gosh, I hadn't noticed that.
So when I want to say, hey, you met the deadline or you were late only 10 minutes, I have to calculate what is 1.27 of a day kind of thing.
Right, you have to do, how many minutes is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
And so then when I download them,
yeah,
I used to be able to download them individually. Now I can only download them through the grade, whatever that's called, analyzer, and it downloads half of them as PDFs. So
right.
Maybe it's something I did something.
No, and nothing you could do to change that.
Okay.
That would just means that Instructure has changed that.
So I can no longer download one assignment as the Word document itself at a time from a student?
I'm going to have to look.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
So downloading assignments. Just making a note to myself because I learned not to rely on my memory.
And I'm sorry for anyone else. If you have questions about grading, please ask over mine.
No, that was a good question. I appreciate
I'm going
it.
to say there's other people wondering the same thing. Please don't ever apologize for asking a question on any subject in any of these sessions.
And Mr. Dave, if you could email me I'll put my email in the chat. If you could also email me your findings about it, I would love
Sure
that.
will. I'll send it to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The downloading assignment submissions and time stamp on assignment submission. Change. I'll look into those and see what I find.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Because sometimes Canvas constantly, or Instructure constantly updates Canvas. And sometimes when they make what they consider to be minor changes, they don't tell us. So we find it out the hard way.
Is it fair to presume that when we open Canvas, we have the most current version that's up in the cloud?
Yes, you do. That's the beautiful thing about a cloud-based learning management system. Updates are applied for everyone at the same time. So everyone, when they go in, has the latest, greatest version of Canvas every day. And you don't have one school lagging behind others because they didn't apply the updates or whatever, like we used to have with Blackboard when we locally hosted it.
Mhm.
You know, we had to apply the updates ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was a process that we sometimes had to be cautious about, because some of those up with the version of Blackboard we used when I first got here, sometimes the updates would break something, and we'd wait for a few weeks before we'd apply them to see if anybody else, you know, had problems. And so you just didn't know if you were on the latest version of the software or not. With Canvas, you don't have to worry about that. Everybody gets the updates at the same time. And there's no way to delay them. So if the update breaks something, it breaks something for everyone.
Right.
So it's good and bad, but mostly good. Okay, but let's look at the, I want to see here, I've got it doesn't matter what kind of assessment I use. Here I've got a discussion post.
Mhm.
And I'm going to go into the speed grader. And here I have comments.
Right.
And let's say this is good. And I want to add a comment to
Can
the
you
effect.
raise your screen there for a little bit, because it's behind your head on the images? Right
Oh
now.
gosh, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely.
There you go.
That's that.
Yep.
That's the disadvantage to this particular, or I can make myself really, really
Thank you, Dr. Freud.
so I'm not covering up anything, which is a lot more important than I am. But if I go to the comments box, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Nice work.
Mhm.
On this. This assignment or this comment is not saved until I click submit. Once I click submit, it shows up
Right.
below the grade box under listed assignment comments. If you don't see it here, it's not saved.
Correct.
And that's really frustrating.
How about on that document? Could you download that? Maybe it's not a downloadable document. I was just trying to see.
No, the comment is not.
No, I'm sorry, the assignment that was attached.
Oh, the assignment that was attached. No, not in this case, because it's a discussion topic. If it had been a homework assignment and a file had been uploaded, then there would be a link right here to download the file.
Right. You see where it says submitted up there? That does not show on attachments any longer.
I'm sorry, that doesn't show where?
So above the grading on the right, it says submitted February 4th at 2021 at 6:45 p.m.
Right.
That used to
That's
show.
what's not showing now.
When they had an attachment, that used to show. It doesn't show. Only on the discussion board.
Okay, I will take a look at that and get back to you on that and see
Thank you, Dave.
see how that happened and when it happened. There's probably not anything I can do about it, but at least you'll know.
Yeah, great.
Thanks. Yeah, so this is where I'll look on and I'll check some assignments, some current. I'll have to go in and submit some current assignments as a test student and see what happens.
Sounds good.
All righty. There is a way, by the way, if you want to keep records of this, you could always take a screenshot.
Oh, I've loved my Snagit. I use it every day.
Okay, I was going to say you could use Snagit or a comparable tool like the snipping tool in Windows. Then you, of course, you end up with a huge library of screenshots that you have to organize, store and organize if they're going to be of any use to you. But if there's something you want to keep because you see trouble coming soon, and yeah, it just so happens I have my Snagit tool on this screen. So Snagit, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a program created by a company called TechSmith that's been around for 25 years, I think. That is a screenshot tool. It makes it very easy to take a photograph, in effect, of a portion of your screen and save it to your computer as an image file. And that can be useful in a lot of ways. Snagit itself is not free. I think it costs faculty. It's you get quite a break on the price. It's something on the order of $40 for a permanent license. You don't have to pay that every year.
They do have the thing right now that if you do it, you get 2 years free of upgrades as well. Otherwise, the older version isn't bad.
Yeah, they run promotions all the time. But there's also a free version of Snagit called TechSmith Capture that has some limitations, but actually there are very few limitations on its ability to take static screenshots. The limitations are mainly on the ability of Snagit to record video, screencasting. And TechSmith Capture is completely free and works basically the same way. You just tickle this little blue bar at the top of the screen, click the big red button, you get a cursor, which unfortunately is not being sent to you. Shoot, it doesn't show that. That's a layer that's not.
I can see it actually. Your magnifying glass, we can see it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I'm seeing it on my repeater screen over here, but I'm not. Oh, I know why. Looking at the wrong place. Okay, so you get this cursor, this bullseye cursor. If you click and drag, you can choose what portion of the screen you want to keep. You then get this little control bar. And if you just want a static screenshot, you click the little camera. And that pops up on another screen.
The best thing ever.
And you have this in a library and it never goes away. Or you can save it to your pictures as a JPEG image. What I call this sample screenshot, so I know what it is. And save that to my pictures folder and keep that forever. And I can insert it into Word documents or refer to it and print it out if I need to prove that what the status was at any given time in Canvas and so on. And again, TechSmith Capture will do the same thing as far as screenshots go, and it's totally free. And it works essentially the same way. But another thing that you have to worry about with comments is whether the students can see them or not. And in order to show you what that looks like, I need to go to my home screen here, go to student view.
Well, to that point, I've had students that have sent me comments and I don't know where to find them. Because I'll get a pop-up that says, you have a comment from a student. I look through it and I'm not sure what the heck. And then, yeah.
Okay, in that case.
I think it's in the same spot, but it doesn't come up easily. You have to kind of click and find it.
Yeah. I don't have any examples of that right now.
Okay.
That is accessible. Let me think about that.
I think you have to go into the actual document or the actual assignment.
Into the actual assignment and to see that's right.
As if you were going to enter a comment and then theirs appears there.
And you will see it there. Right. You see it in that comments list.
Yep. Precisely.
But
I had to turn notifications on for that because I wasn't automatically getting comments.
Right. You can, there is a notification setting that will have Canvas send you an email.
Yes.
Student sends you a comment. And notifications in Canvas are a whole nother
can of worms.
Can of worms is exactly the term I was looking for. And I did a session on that recently, and I think the recording is in the on our on-demand site. If not, it will be there shortly, but I'm pretty sure it's there. So that's worth looking at because there are lots of things that can save you time in those notification settings. Save you time having to go in and manually check things. You can have Canvas automatically inform you of certain unusual events that you might not normally check for, and save you a lot of time in the process, and save you missing something that you really needed to respond to. And the students can do the same thing. The notifications are even, settings are even more critical for the students, and they have to set their own. There's no way you can set them for them. So we can't set them for them. Anyway, it is critical that the students know how to use the grades tool as vis-a-vis comments.
Yeah.
The sure thing is for them to, rather than just looking at the numbers, is to click on the title of the assignment.
Oh.
That will pull up any comments over here on the right. Any comments you make or that they send to you will appear over here, including media comments. And they can read them, they can play them back. Camera, because that's where you're.
Yeah.
But there's other types of feedback that they sometimes miss because they have to click on this view feedback link here. And this is a little bit of a funky design in Canvas, I have to admit. But if they do that, then they will see any of the, and this one unfortunately doesn't have any. If you've done markup feedback over top of the document, this is where they'll see that. But they won't see it unless they click on the view feedback button. And in our open on demand site at sdccdolvid.org, we have a for students section of student oriented tutorials. And there are, that would be a Canvas tutorial.
I should really link that into my syllabus.
And if the students go there, or if you go there, you can go and look at the student tutorials as well. There's a, let's see. There's a lot of them, unfortunately, but just 2 pages. And they can look, and in there is check your student grades in Canvas. It's the last one, wouldn't you know? It's the first one we put in there. So it's the last one displayed. And that has its own direct link that you can give to them. But this is a video tutorial that shows them basically what I just showed you.
I love it.
In a little bit more detail and in a little bit better order, and with fewer ums and ha and hemming and hawing. And they can view this at any time. And here's the link.
Yeah.
And I'll just put that in the chat tool. And there's the link for that tutorial. That's one I'd supply to my students right off the bat. Because that way you're going to have fewer, I didn't see your comments, so I didn't redo that, and I got a bad grade and so on. This will show them how to use that grades tool, how to get that. And there's lots of other stuff in there as well, as you saw under for students. We've got Canvas tutorials for students, Zoom tutorials for students. We've included tutorials that are either relevant to students as well as faculty, or in many cases, tutorials we have created specifically for students. And then we have some miscellaneous ones that didn't fit in any of these categories. So they're always welcome to look at those. And of course, they can look at any of the tutorials on this site if they want to and get some insight into how things are done in Canvas or Zoom or whatever. And they may find that useful in some other context.
Dave, thank you for all your time and your expertise. I appreciate it.
Well, if we eventually stumble to getting you the information you need, that's enough for us. So, and I will look into this business with the timestamp reporting and the downloading of assignments and see what's going on there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you for the questions. Take care, and thanks for coming. Anybody else have another question on anything that I can help with? We're way past being specific to grading at this point. Always happy to stay and answer questions as long as you have them.
I just want to say thank you, Dave, for this great refreshing course. I really enjoy attending it.
Well, I believe me, I understand. Thank you very much for the kind words. But there are times when I have to go back and look at my own tutorials.
Yeah, I might go
Tutorial
back.
shows that I knew how to do something at one time, but sometimes
Right. Yeah, I think I need to go back to like the, what do you call the new quiz, like
new quizzes.
for the, yeah, that's
We
coming up,
do.
right?
Yeah, eventually, but apparently we're not going to be forced to use new quizzes until the summer of 2024. So it's not an immediate concern. On the other hand, new quizzes have some really cool features, and you can use them now, and they work fine. They're not unreliable. A lot of schools have switched over to them, and entirely. And the you can even mix new quizzes and classic quizzes in the same course. And they look about the same to the students, so the students don't really know whether it's a new quiz or a classic quiz. And they'll coexist side by side just fine.
So Dave, if I copy over the Canvas to new shell, does the quiz bank come over too?
They do, but if you copy a course and you have classic question banks,
Right.
they copy.
Oh, okay.
But they come over as classic question banks. And
So I need to migrate.
if you've turned on new quizzes in the target course and you do a course copy,
Right.
you get an option to copy your classic quizzes as into new quizzes, and they get converted during the copy. But it can't do that with question banks yet. So the process of getting classic question banks into a form that you can use with new quizzes,
Right.
which they call an item bank now just to distinguish it, but it's the same idea. You have to convert them one at a time. Once you do the copy, and it's a 7-step process.
Oh,
For which we have a tutorial. It's not hard to do.
okay.
The second time you do it, it's easy. The first time, it's a bit of an adventure. And we have a tutorial on how to do that. And all of that's included here on our Open On Demand site. And we have this little featured spinner at the top. And this just cycles. And we have a summary page on using new quizzes in Canvas, which you can access from this slideshow. And it has a series of tutorials that will show you how to activate new quizzes, how to create new quizzes, how to migrate classic quizzes to new quizzes, and the question banks. This is the tutorial, has a 7-step process in it. Converting classic quizzes to new quizzes is very easy. Converting classic question banks to new quizzes, item banks, is less straightforward. But
Okay, so I'll watch this one again, just converting banks, right?
then these are the new question types in new quizzes that you don't have in classic quizzes. So we show each one of those. So all of this is available in one page on our on-demand site. And here is the link and I'll put that in the chat tool, but you can navigate to it easily enough.
Thank you so much. That can really helpful. Yeah, I'm gonna play with it during the summer.
And we'll certainly do live sessions on new quizzes periodically during the next couple of years
Okay.
because they are useful right now, but
Right.
you won't be forced to use them until the summer of 2020.
24.
Long time. You know, we'd just be happy to still be here in 2020.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Dave. I really always enjoy your workshop.
Oh, thanks.
Whether it's a new one or the refreshing ones, they're all great.
Well,
Thanks so much.
thank you so much. That's very sweet of you. You know, as a teacher yourself, you know how much that means to me. So thank you.
And if I don't see you, have a wonderful summer and see you in fall.
Summer, I'll be offering, we're even going to offer sessions next month, even though you can't get flex credit next month.
No
We will be
problem.
offering
Sounds good.
sessions during June and then throughout the summer and the fall. I just signed up for another year. So we'll be doing this through the end of next June anyway, or a year from June.
Oh, we'd love to have you longer than a year, definitely. Again, thank you so much, Dave. Have a wonderful day.
Coming. You too.
Bye-bye.